Hey everyone, welcome back to class 4 of the Hollyhock Hobo bag. That's our September Tuesday 2023 class. Again, this class in the series is pre-recorded because I was at So Magical Expo and we didn't have a class that week. So we finished up as much as we could in class 3. And then I am pre-recording this one rather than trying to find a time where everybody can meet up because we jump into our next bag already on Tuesday. So what we're going to do is we're going to be working on the lining and the exterior together. Yeah, we are so close to being done this bag, like so close. So for homework, you should have done the pleating on the lining side. On both of the lining pieces, put your rivets in here. I said I've done my pleating on these, so it kind of does this. Attached our pocket, have our lining pockets done, including leaving an opening in the bottom of this one. So the first thing we are going to do is, I should have left this for homework because we already went through this, but that's okay. Let me double check my seam allowance. So the way we put the bottom and the sides together, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the exact same thing with the lining gusset pieces. Okay, so let me put this to table down, and then we are going, do you know what? I'm going to go off camera and do these. You're going to do them exactly the same way. Then I don't have to switch my cameras around, where we are putting the bottom onto here, stitching across. You can decide if you want to top stitch through the bottom. I very rarely do that on the lining side because, I mean, no one's really going to see it. So I'm going to quickly go do that and then come back and we will put the gussets on the exterior and on the lining pieces. Okay, one moment, be right back. Alrighty, let me fix my camera here. Okay, so we should have our 2 gusset pieces. Again, I didn't top stitch these for the lining because I don't think it really matters. We have our exteriors and we have our lining panels. So now it's just putting it all together. So we will start with, actually we'll start with the exterior panel here. So we want to make sure we found our top and bottom centers, which we have. Now on our gusset pieces, you're going to fold them in half to find the bottom centers here, matching up our seam on each side. Pull it tight and make your snip. Same with the other side. Make your snip. Okay. Then we are going to put these right sides together. We're going to line up the bottom center here with the bottom center here and put in 3 or 4 clips. And then we're going to bring this up like so, matching up the top of the gusset with the top, the pointiest part of the side. Put some clips there. Coco says hi. Put in 3 or 4 clips. Bring up the other side. Do the same thing. Oh, Coco. We have somebody doing construction across the street and she does not like it at all. Okay, and then you can start working it down and you are going to find it's going to look like the gusset probably doesn't want to go around that corner. If it does that, I will show you what we will do to try to make it do that, get around that corner. Go on the bottom as far as it can go before it looks like it won't go anymore. Okay, now can you see this? See how it looks like it doesn't want to go around very well? It looks like my exterior piece is curvier than this, and that's exactly what it is because the gusset is a straight piece, but we want to make it go curvy. So what we're going to do is just in the gusset piece, right where that curve is, we're going to put like little 1/8 of an inch in between an 1/8 of an inch and a 1/4 of an inch. You don't want to go over a 1/4 of an inch. Little snips. And what this is going to do is help it make it so we can spread that fabric around. So like so. See how those snips make it so it kind of can go around that corner. Okay, and we're going to do the same with the opposite side. And yours may fit around perfectly fine too. Mine isn't, you can see. So again, I'm going to do those little snips into it just to help it ease around that curve. Just like so. Okay, so that's what that looks like. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew all the way around here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right. So you may want a stiletto handy for around the corners. You may or may not need it. Okay, 3/8 of an inch. Use my stiletto. Oops, throwing clips everywhere. So kind of feel along here, make sure everything's nice and flat so you don't have any nicks or tucks. Make sure it's not shifting too much. Okay, there we go. Now it's flat. Use your stiletto, Brandy. That's why you have one. Now you will feel like it has nips and tucks kind of at the bottom here, but that's because we do have pleats there. So that is how it is supposed to be. Make sure it goes in the corner good. Okay, and because I am using a thicker vinyl, I'm just going to double check that my thread does not look stressed out. Let me see. And it doesn't, well, maybe a little bit there. So to be safe, I'm going to go and I'm going to do another row of strength stitches, an 1/8 of an inch into the seam allowances right next to that last line of stitches we just did. Now you may or may not need to do this. Mine is just right where my vinyl meet. I can see that my threads look a little bit stressed out. It's where you can see them in the seam, and I definitely don't want that. So doing another row of stitches, if you have that happening, we'll fix that. Just make sure it's within the seam allowance and it just strengthens that seam and takes some of that tension off of your foot. Back to 2. Okay, so then you're just kind of going to run your finger down and around to make sure everything was caught. There's no raw edges. Which looks pretty good. Then we're going to do the exact same thing with the opposite side. So make sure you have your top and bottom centers, which I do. We're going to put this right sides together and we are going to clip it to the opposite side of the gusset. Matching up your bottom center. Bringing up the top. Oop, butterfingers. Opposite side. And then start working each side towards the corners until it looks like it might not go around as far as you can. Sometimes I find the second side ends up fitting in pretty good. I do not know why that is. It just always does. It usually does. We'll see if it does this time. See, it's going to be pretty... Oh, no, I'm going to have to do a few snips. Oh, maybe not. See what I mean? See, it fits perfectly on the second side. But if yours doesn't, definitely do some little snips into that corner to help ease it around. It baffles me why the second side always works so good. Now, if you get to this part and it seems like your exterior is too big, that could be because your pleats weren't quite big enough, so you can always add in a couple extras if you wanted to fix that up. But this looks like it's going to be okay for me. It fits in perfectly. Okay, so I like to put this main panel down on the bed of the machine like this, and then we're going to go around this way. I find that the easiest way to do that. So let's go do this. So exact same thing. I'm going to go around with 3/8, and then I'm going to do a second row of strengthening stitching around just because I'm using a thicker vinyl. Another one bites the dust. All my clips are slowly dying. They're all the same age and they all seem to give away at the same time. Good thing I have a lot of them. We're trying to slide there. If you're going to get any puckers, it will happen right in these curvy corners. So Make sure you're pressing it nice and flat. This bag, if you have a few puckers, it's really not going to make a big difference because it is that hobo type bag. It'll just make it look more hobo-ish. So don't be hard on yourself if you do get a couple, because it'll still look lovely. Okay, and I'm going to go around again with strengthening stitches. Once I clear off some of these clips, I need a bowl. And one bowl is full. Let's go around again. Done, done, done. Okay, so kind of reach in that side we just sewn and run your finger down along that seam. Make sure everything was caught and it looks good. Go around, double check. Then you're going to take your pinking shears, and I'm not going to worry about trimming my seam allowances up. You know what, we're going to do a little trick because I am worried about thicknesses, especially at these top seams when we go to top stitch. So we're going to do a little trick where you kind of clip in close to your seam allowance as you can. Okay. And then you can fan this out like so. See what I'm doing here? And hold that with a couple clips, and what it is it's just making it a little less thick for when we top stitch this. So, oh, there's Coco again. So do that all the way around. Do it for this one too. Now I am cutting into my second, you know, that second row of stitches that I did. I'm about 1 inch down because it's going to need that spread out. Just make sure you don't cut to that first row if you did that extra row of stitching. Spread it out. Oh, cocoa beans. So yeah, I'm just taking a little bit of that stitching that I did extra just because I want, especially where this overlay is, to lay flat. Okay, and spread it out. Again, I'm just picking out, you may not have to, but it's really thick there. So this is that second row of strengthening stitches I did. I'm just cutting it out right at that 1 inch mark so I can spread these out a little bit more. Because I have a super thick vinyl here, so. But the strengthening goes the rest of the way around, and it just makes it so I can pull this flat, like so, to help reduce that bulk for when we top stitch this later. Okay, do the other two sides. This is not part of the pattern. This is just a trick that I like to do when I feel like my seams are just that little bit too thick, especially when it comes to top stitching, because then you don't want to get hung up on it, or if your machine is sensitive to thicknesses, it just spreads out those seams a little bit. It's opening them up and holding them open. Or you can just open them up as you go too. But I find basting them in place first just really makes it a lot easier. One less thing you have to worry about when you're trying to catch everything on the way around. Make sure I didn't cut my stitching except for an extra row. So you wouldn't be picking out any stitches here if you didn't do that second row of strengthening stitching. I did. I wasn't thinking. we go. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and we're just going to baste those in place open. So you can see all 4 of those seams I have butterflied open, so let's go baste them in. Here we go. So I find it easiest just to kind of go like this and baste them in. We'll do one side, and I'm just going to kind of go along the whole top. Make sure it's all being caught. 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to go along the top so I don't have to break my thread. To the other side where we have them feathered open. Okay, that's one side done. You see, feathered open. Do the opposite side. And you don't have to do this, but it really does help reduce some of that thickness. So just a little trick. Okay. And it really doesn't take that much time, like an extra couple minutes. Okay. Okay. So those seams are nice and open. Now what we can do is I'm going to go underneath where the overlay is and just trim it up to about 1/4 of an inch seam out. It's mostly important right around these corners. So I think I'm just going to do it around the corners. Mainly because my pinking shears are not good. It'll just help get a nicer, curvier bottom edge here. But I'm not going to worry about it too much the rest of the way. We've already got that one seam opened up. Okay, so that bottom corner is done. Let's do this one. Just to help with that curviness. My hands do not want to work. There we go. Okay. So that's what we got. So now what we want to do is, okay, we are going to attach our zipper panels. So we have our centers marked on there already. Now I have this laid down so I can see my front is here, because we are going to be putting these right sides together right along there. So it's going to be right sides together, but we want to make sure that our top one is closing to the left. So the curvy part of the zipper is going that way. We're going to put them right sides together, match that center, and clip it in place. Now you will be kind of curving this up with matching up the shape. Make it follow all the way along the shape of the bag, or of the top of the bag. Lots of clips. And it kind of makes this curve a little bit. If it's fighting, you can put a few little snips into the zipper panel along that raw edge, and you'll see it's not going to come right to the edge. I think this is about, and it shouldn't come right to the edge, it's about 3/8 to 1/2 inch away from the seam, the side seam. The same up the other side, like so. And just come up about the same on the opposite side. So it looks something like that. Let's do the same with the opposite side. Put it right sides together, except for now you're going to notice when you have this side down, the curvy part of the zipper is going to be to the right. Just make sure your tails are going the right direction. That's how you know if you've got it on there right. Match up that center. Okay, the other side. And then kind of look at it and make sure, you can see here, mine are lining up nicely, so my zipper is going to go into place good. Make sure I do have this definitely the right way. So yes, I do. Okay, and then we are going to go, watch that you don't see your tails, and we're just going to baste that in place on both sides with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so baste it in. Make sure you're not sewing through your tails. Have them out and out of the way. So this may be a little bit awkward. This might be a little easier to do on a cylinder arm. And I'm just going to do it on this one. Stiletto may help hold everything in place. Just want to make sure it stays nice and lined up. This is trying to move, just kind of make sure it's staying where it needs to stay. Clip by clip. So it's a very different kind of recess zipper. It's a very, very slight recession here. You see how, because it's straight and wants to fight away from it. So just make sure it's still following the shape of the exterior. So it's slightly curvy, very slight curve. That's one side done. Okay, let's do the opposite side. This is too nice. Okay. Now I will be finishing this bag on a cylinder arm because it is easier and I do have one, so why not, right? And it also shows those of you that have a free arm, which I know the majority of domestic and heavy duty machines have, how to sew on there as well. Try to give the best of all worlds that I can in these classes. Okay. That's done. All right. Okay, so now that that's done, we can go ahead and we can turn the exterior right side out. Hope we put our zipper on the right way. The moment of truth. Okay, push out all of your seams. Double check everything was caught good. Okay, look how she looks so far. She's looking good. So I'm just going to kind of fold my seams together like so, matching up these two side seams, just to make sure that my zipper panel is even. And you can see that it definitely is. It's going to match up nicely. So that is the exterior done so far. And I have my zipper going the right way. So this is good. Set this aside for now. Now we're going to work on the linings. So the first part of the lining we're going to do is pull out the one that has our slip pocket. So the opposite side of the zipper pocket, okay? We're going to find our centers once again on all pieces. So I'll do that and match up the seam of my bottom to find my bottom center. Just like we did with the exterior. Goes together pretty much the same way with just a couple differences. Okay. I already have my top and bottom centers here. I've got my pleats done. So for this one, we want to leave an opening in the bottom of the bag for turning. So on the wrong side, we are going to make marks. I just kind of do like a 1/4 of an inch away from the seam here. So from about there to there. It says in the pattern to do a 4-inch opening, but I just find it easier to have it as big as you possibly can for turning. So you can see I'm doing it, my marks like really close, like probably a 1/4 inch away from the seam. Okay, so on that side I'm going to write open just so I don't accidentally sew past it. Take these right sides together, and where we have the open is where we are going to match along here, and we're going to do it exactly like how we clipped the exterior. Bring up the side. The opposite side. Oops, got my finger clipped in there. There we go. And then start working around each side, evenly distributing that fabric, making snips if you can. Oh, I gotta answer my phone. 1 moment. Sorry about that. That was my kid. Okay, continue clipping down and around. You guys are probably all laughing at my ringer. Poor Riley. Okay, try to open up the seam if you can. Just reduce some of the bulk going around. Actually, I'm going to just push it towards the bottom side. You do whatever works for you. Actually, no, I'm going to open up the seam. I'm opening it up. There we go. Okay, and again, if it looks like it's not going to fit around, we're going to go ahead and just do some little snips in the gusset. And you don't have to be super fussy with the lining. If it doesn't match up perfectly, nobody's going to see. Trust me. Bring it around that curve. But mine fit pretty good. So I got one extra little, it's a little bit too big there. I'm actually just going to make another pleat like that. And it'll be fine. Nobody's going to see it. The other side. At the bottom. Open up that seam best you can. See, and this side fit perfectly around. So what that is showing is I cut something too big over here, but it's fine. Okay, so now what we are going to do differently with this side is we want our lining to fit nice and tight inside. So we're going to make it a little bit smaller. So to about here, so that's about 3.5-ish inches down. We're going to sew down here on each side with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then we are going to branch out all the way around to where our little notches were here, to that open side, to a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is going to make it so our lining is a little bit smaller so it's not droopy inside. So you're going to sew and back stitch right at that little mark that we made. We're going to jump over to the other mark, start at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance until we hit about 3.5 inches ish. So 5/8 of an inch from our mark, back stitch up to here, and then we're going to branch down again to our 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So the reason we branch down is we still need the circumference of the top of this to be the same size as our exterior for when we put them together. So the circumference will stay the same, but making our seam allowance bigger makes the bottom of the lining smaller, so it'll be more snug. So let's go ahead and do that, again making sure that you leave that opening in the bottom. Okay, so again, we're starting with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance until we're 3 or 4 inches in, then we'll branch out. Okay, and right about here, I'm going to start branching out to 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure your seams are open here if you can make them that way. Get to that mark where we left the opening and backstitch a couple times because it may stretch those stitches when we're turning it out. We don't want it to tear too much. Okay, hop on over to the, leaving that bottom part open, hop on over to the next mark we made at 5/8 of an inch. Going okay? Taking a peek. Yeah, we're fine. Oh, that's because there's pleats. Oh my gosh, yes, because we got the pleats in there. It feels a little weird, but it feels the way it should. Okay, so 5/8 of an inch at that other mark. Backstitch a couple times to make sure it's strong. Continue around until we get to about 3.5, 4 inches away from, what is that? Oh, that's where I created that extra pleat because I had excess fabric. So that's okay too. Okay, then when you get to about 4 inches, branch back down to 3/8 of an inch to the top. Backstitch. Oops, I went not quite 3 inches or 3/8 of an inch. Let me fix that. Looks like I went to about 1/4 of an inch, which is too small. There we go. Okay. Just like that. Okay. So you can see here we have that opening in the bottom for turning. Kind of go around, make sure everything was caught. She looks good. There's my extra pleat right there. You can't even tell. Now you can go ahead and press these open, but because it's just fabric, I find it easy enough to press that open as we go, unlike the vinyl, but you can definitely baste those open if you want to. On this side, not where it's open, but kind of after where our seam is here, we're going to trim that seam allowance just around those curves. Just where we branched out to that 5/8, just to take away some of that excess fabric, but not along that bottom opening because we're going to have to turn that under. So just about where we ended up veering back to the 3/8 and down just to the bottom seam there. Okay, so that is one side done for turning. We're going to take our other lining piece, just like we did with the exterior. We're going to put it right sides together. But this one we are going to sew all the way around, but we will start with that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, branch all the way down to a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance as we come around the bottom, and then back up to a 3/8 of an inch when we get to the top. But you only need the opening in the one side, which we've done already. The other side. So close, you guys, we're so close. we are coming to the hardest part, which is actually the top stitching through that zipper panel. And that's where I said if you have a machine that is sensitive to thicknesses, you probably wanted to choose cotton or a thin vinyl for there, just because we are sewing through many, many layers. Being on an industrial like me, it can handle it. But just always know the sensitivities of your machine as you go and choose your fabrics accordingly. So I chose to get an industrial because I like to sew with upholstery grade vinyls and leathers and thick stuff. That's just what I like, and it works well for me. But when I had my Juki 2010Q, I sewed in a lot of cottons and lightweight vinyls, and that worked fine too. Opposite side. Can open up that seam. You could even have pressed that seam open if you had preferred. I didn't. I didn't have to put any notches in it, so that's nice. Always fits perfectly on this opposite side. Mind blown. Okay, so let's go sew this side on now. One more clip. Alrighty. I'm going to start with 3/8 of an inch till about 3 inches or so down, 3.5, 4 inches down ish. Doesn't have to be exact. And once you get there, you're going to branch out to the 5/8 all the way around the bottom until we hit the other side. This is where we can stitch the seam open. Across the bottom, unlike the opposite side where we left it open. Again, it feels weird here because we have those pleats. Don't let it throw you off, like it almost threw me off. So used to feeling for smoothness that when you have something like that in there, it's just kind of whoa. My pedal is squeaky, I apologize. Tiffany is a squeaky girl. Okay, and then once we get to about 4 inches or so in, we're going to start branching down to our 3/8 of an inch again. Finishing it off. And then go ahead and trim those seams just like we did on the opposite side. Okay, so we're almost there. We have our exterior and our lining. Now we need to put them together. So I like my zipper pocket to be at the back of my bag. So I'm going to make sure I have this positioned the way I want it to be. So my zipper pocket is here and my back of my bag is here. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it inside my lining, right sides together. Squish it really good in there. It's not too bad because it's mostly fleece as our stabilizer, so she is squishable. We want to match up our front and bottom, or front and back center marks of our linings and our exteriors. So start with one of them, match up those center marks. I'm going to use a ton of clips here. I'm going to put 4 clips in to hold that. I'm going to do the same on my opposite side. Now your tails here, you want to make sure are pushed down. We do not want those tails to get caught in our seam allowances. Otherwise we won't be able to put our pull back on. Okay, match up the front center. Lots of clips. We don't want it to move. We want our zipper panel to match up. Okay, so once we got those, now we are going to match up these side seams for our exterior and our lining. So the lining, I'm going to open up my side seam and then line up that seam with the exterior seam. Put in some clips. Now you may notice we have some little kind of wings from when we open up those seams. You can trim, see that little wing there? I'm going to just trim that little wing off. Same with on this side. Trim up those little wings. Same with on the exterior or the lining. When you open it up, you see how it gives you little wings? Just trim up those wings so they don't confuse us. Okay, match up the seam. Clips. Lots of clips. Do that for all 4 of the side seams. Clip up those wings. Match up that seam. And it should fit perfectly if you got your seam allowances right. Okay, same with this other side. I'm going to trim up my wings. Probably would have been good to do it beforehand, but it's just as easy to do it at this point. You can leave the wings there, just know that they're there. They kind of go over the raw edge, so you might confuse your seam allowance. Okay. Match up that side seam. And then go ahead and evenly distribute the fabric, clipping it in between those clip sections. It should fit nicely. See, it's fitting perfectly, which is what we want. Perfect fit. Just what we want. But I am not a stranger to clips with this. You do not want this to move, especially where our zipper panel is. It is really thick there, so just be prepared for that. You may need a hump jumper to get over some of those seams, depending on your machine. You know me, I'm no stranger to clips. Clips are your friend. Okay, so now I am going to take this to my cylinder arm because this is the exact reason why I bought my cylinder arm. So I'll show you. So if you are going to be using a cylinder arm or a free arm, you will do it how I am going to do it. If you are on a flatbed that doesn't have a free arm, you're going to put it down like this and you're going to sew around here and turn your bag this way and sew along the inside. I'm on a cylinder arm, or if you have a free arm, I'm going to put my cylinder or the free arm in here and sew on this side. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's do this. Three-eighths of an inch. Take it slow. Have your hump jumper ready if you need it. I have mine right here. And you'll see I just go like clip by clip, nice and slow, because you want to be sure nothing is going to shift. Your needles down if you need to reposition your bag at all. Quarter of the way done. Okay. You can see how opening up those seams made it so I didn't need my hump jumper. So that is good. And I'm using thick vinyl. Nice and slow. You can see I don't go fast by any means. Again, kind of feeling to make sure your zipper tails didn't sneak up. Use your sense of touch here. Make sure everything is where it needs to be. Yeah, I have no problems with those thick seams at all. Oops, I'm hung up a little bit there. Just give it a little bit of a... So I might have needed my hump jumper there, but I got over it. Done. All right, now it's time to challenge my hands. We'll see if I have to go off camera to do this because my wrists are tired. So we're going to turn. Well, first make sure everything was caught all the way around, and it was. You can go ahead and use your pinking shears around this curvy part. Because I use vinyl for my zipper panel, it's kind of hard for me to trim there because it is so thick, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just finger press it in place and go ahead, if it all looks good, and turn it out through the opening in the bottom. So squish it really good to get that bottom out first. With the fleece, it does make it a little bit easier. Oh yeah, it's not hard at all. But we are coming to the hardest part. And again, it'll depend on if you chose the right things for your machine for that zipper panel, because it is going to be a thick, thick top stitching. That turned out not too bad. That wasn't too bad at all. So reach in through that opening and just kind of push out all of those seams of your exterior. Looks good. Kind of give the lining and the exterior a tug here just to make sure everything was caught and making sure my seams, my stitches don't look stressed, and they don't. But kind of just tug along here to make sure everything was caught really good. Because there's nothing worse where you kind of miss something, but it looks good to me. Okay. So then you're going to stuff the lining once that looks good. What's this? Oh, it's just, I thought I had a raw edge, but I don't. Stuff it into the bag. Okay. Now you want to make sure your lining is pulled down really tight. And again, this is the hard part. First off, you want to make sure that your zipper panel is still matching up and mine is. We are good. Pull that lining really tight and down along that seam, because we're going to prepare for top stitching. Oh, it's going to be thick for me because of the vinyl I used. I use my big clips here. So this is what I mean. I use this pearl vinyl, so it is going to be thick. And what we're going to do is make sure the lining is tucked in nice and tight, and we are going to fold this zipper panel over like that. And this is what we're top stitching through. So you're folding the zipper panel into the inside, finger pressing this seam really good. And see, pearl vinyl I wouldn't recommend using if you're on a domestic machine for this bag, because it's gonna be thick. So continue pressing, making sure your lining is inside really good. Seriously, look how thick that is. Now, I used a promo vinyl or a Canuck vinyl, and it's not nearly as thick of a seam. So this is just showing you based on what you choose for your things. So hopefully I won't have any problems. I don't think I will. I don't think so. Make sure you push your corners seams out really good. And go ahead and clip all the way around. I said, I'm going to have some thickness to deal with. That's okay. I did it to myself. Okay, I'm going to finish clipping this. Dave just got home. Coco's going to lose her poop for a moment. So go ahead, clip all the way around. We'll come back and we'll start top stitching this. All right. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit worried about my vinyl choices. Even on my, oh my goodness. The dogs are just, they're losing it. It's thick. Look at that. So we are going to see how good Tommy deals with this, because see how beautiful this is going to be. So hopefully it works out. So this is exactly why I said to make sure you know the limitations of your machine. So again, I think I'm testing it. As you're top stitching this, you want to make sure you do not sew through your zipper tails as well. Okay, so make sure those are out of the way and they're not getting caught in that top stitch. I'm going to take this to the cylinder arm just like we did before and sew it through this way. Do it as you would do on your flatbed if you don't have a free arm or a cylinder arm. I know some people choose to top stitch it from the lining side here, making sure their bobbin is good, or turning the bag inside out so the exterior of the bag is on the inside and then top stitching it around that way. That is what I used to do when I was on my flatbed when I didn't have my cylinder arm, is I would turn my bag inside out and I would top stitch this way, and then you know that your exterior looks perfect. So I think I have enough in my bobbin. I'm too lazy to wind another one because I think I have enough. So fingers crossed, I'm living on the edge a little bit, and let's go and get this all top stitched. Okay, deep breaths. I have my hump jumper because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need it. Whew. I'm really worried about the thickness I chose. So I'm going to make sure I have a really big stitch length because it is so thick. All right, and I'm going to start at a side. I'll move some of my bowls out of the way. Wish me luck. So I'm actually going to top stitch mine with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance just because it is so thick, and I want to make sure I'm catching everything. So you should be top stitching with 1/8 of an inch, but if it's thicker, I recommend going in with 1/4 of an inch. Okay, deep breaths. Oh, look at, oh, it's even challenging Tommy. So I'm going to hand crank, back stitch 1. So I'm getting through, but I had to hand crank through that thickness. I have not had to do that on my industrial before. Now look under here. See how this kind of gets caught? You want to make sure that goes under like so. So watch where that zipper panel is sitting and make sure you're getting it. Going over the thickness really, really slow. This is so thick. I think we're okay. I hope we're okay. I have never sewed anything this thick on my cylinder arm before, but my top stitch looks okay. Whew. I haven't been this nervous since when I tried to sew thick vinyl on my Juki 2010Q. Let's hope it's not eating up the bottom side. Oh, good boy, Tommy, good boy. And this is the front of my bag, which is visible. Oh, my top stitching is looking good on the other side. Whew. Again, I could have used cotton for my zipper panel. I'm just so addicted to these pearls, but I never thought it would be this thick. Okay, so I'm coming to another seam. Now we can start stressing a little bit. I'm gonna make sure our tails are out of the way because I don't want to accidentally sew through my zipper tails. Deep breaths, take it slow. Let's try not to break a needle. Okay. Tail is down and out of the way. I'm gonna get over. Oh, he made it over the seam. Whew, whew, whew. Okay, I'm hung up a little bit there, so I'm just gonna take my hump jumper. Bet you guys never ever thought up. You can even do too much on an industrial machine. Okay, hump jumper helped. We got 2 more thick seams to get through. Again, you want to make sure your zipper panel is under because it may want to get caught and kind of cinch up. So just be very aware of where that is folded under. Okay, so I'm hung up there as well. So I'm going to use my hump jumper again. Double check that this is recording, and it is, because I do not want to do this again. Hump jumper helps immensely. Make sure to see how this is wanting to get caught on my cylinder arm here. So my needle's down and I'm just going to kind of move it up. Make sure it's nice and even. Come on, Tommy, we're almost there. You can do it, baby. I didn't sew through my zippers, did I? Nope. Okay. So yeah, I'm really glad I'm top stitching with that 1/4 of an inch because I think if I went with an 1/8 of an inch, it wouldn't be catching that bottom part because my vinyl is so thick. So it shows you how powerful a 1341 is. I mean, he's not yelling at me. And I can see my top stitching on the bottom is beautiful. But I was nervous. Again, the hardest part of the bag is this. You can hear the machine working. Usually he's a little more quiet. He's a little mad at me. But he's doing it. That's really thick. Okay. We're almost there. Coming to the last seam we have to get over. Okay, it's getting hung up on that. I'm going to take my hump jumper again, just to give it a little bit of height. And it got me over. And back stitch. I only got stuck almost once. Whew, that was almost exciting. Okay, let's go back to the table. We're almost done. Okay, I must tell you, see, this is where your bobbins shows here because it's got that, but look, it worked. Whew, phew, I didn't think it would. I can tell my zipper panels are still going to line up, so that is good. My top stitching looks great. It went a little off kilter there, but I don't think it's that noticeable. It was caught all the way around. She looks beautiful. Wowza. Okay, let's finish this up. So now we want to seal up that hole in the bottom of the bag. So we're going to unzip our zipper pocket. You're going to pull out that pocket that has the opening in the bottom, reach in through there, grab the opening in the bottom of the bag, back in here, both sides, pull it through there. Match up that bottom center, find your little center notches so you know you're lined up, and clip that opening, and then we're going to sew across there with our 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, because that's what we were sewing the bottom of the bag at, so it was a little bit tighter. Holy, school's out early today, or it's lunchtime. It's only 1 o'clock and there's kids walking by. I live on a street that has 2 schools on it. I have an elementary school and a middle school. All right, so now we're going to take this. I'm still going to do it at my cylinder arm because I don't want to change my thread over. And we're just going to start where our stitches stopped and sew across to the opposite side at a 5/8 of an inch seam. Easiest parts now. Yay, home stretch. Okay. So I'm going to find where my stitching ended. Oops, change my bowl out. Different clips. And start right where my stitching started and stop where it stopped. Back stitch. Oops, it's a little bit too small of a stitch for this. Across. It's like my favorite part because you know you're almost done and you just want to get started on the next project. All the stressful stuff is done. But really, there's only the one stressful part. Man, I was stressed. I'm so impressed with my machine. Okay, and then back stitch when you reach the other side. And then while I'm here, you'll see my camera if you can see what I'm doing here. You're going to stuff that back inside. Into the zipper pocket. Make sure that you got everything. It looks good. And then you're going to take your lining. Okay, I think you can see it right here. Your zipper pocket, you should have turned in edges. Fold in your raw edges like so. Clip them. And then top stitch this shut with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm just folding in those raw edges to enclose them. Make sure they're all in there, and then sew that shut. Eighth of an inch. I mean, I could have switched to a thread that matched this lining better, but it's in the pocket. I'm good with it. All right, the sewing part is done. We'll turn off Tommy. Okay, stuff the pocket back inside. This fabric likes to have everything stick to it. Holy moly. Make the pocket nice and flat. Lining, see what I mean? Look how snug this lining is in here. One sec, let me zip it up. Make sure it's all, look how snug that lining is. See, it's not falling into the bag. It's nice and tight. Now we have to put on our zipper pull. So I'll show you how I do it. I'm going to move my camera. If you see my dirty floor, I've been busy. I only sweep my floor once a week. So my husband made me this with a fork and a fly tying vise. So I just put it on the edge of my table. It's just like a jig or a zipper jig. I take my zipper, pull with the wrong side up, and I put it in between the prongs. Okay. Flip this upside down so you can see the wrong side of the zipper, and that line that we drew on the back in the beginning. So you don't have to go zip it all the way up to see if it matches. If you line up that line and we have our zipper panels on straight, you can just kind of, oh, see, it's not quite there. Just go that little bit until you can match up that line, and then hopefully, if we did things right, it'll go on straight. Not quite straight. It normally takes me a couple times. There we go. So you can see my line is straight. Now let's see how straight I sewed on. So when I zip it up, that's pretty darn good. Look at that. She's on pretty straight. So now all that's left to do is I would trim this up to about here. I do that right now. Do I have my zipper on straight enough? I think so. If you're making your own zipper end, you would go ahead and you can sew that on now. I am going to use a metal zipper end, but it hasn't come yet from Emmaline Bags. My order arrives tomorrow, so I will be installing that zipper end on when it comes tomorrow. You trim this off, put on your zipper end, attach your crossbody strap, and that's it. We are done. So just imagine it has the zipper end on. I would tuck it inside like so. Ouch, I'm stabbing myself with my fork now. That's it, all done, you guys. Look how beautiful it is. Even the top stitching that I thought we wouldn't get through. That's it. Yay, I can't wait to see your guys' Hollyhock Hobos. Make sure you post them in the Facebook group under the Hollyhock Hobo class tutorial so it can get into the year-end movie. I cannot do the year-end movie without your pictures, so it's up to you guys whether I get the movie done. So make sure you send those pictures into that album there, so at the end of the year I can do that. Again, if you're on a domestic machine, I would not recommend pearl vinyls for this bag. If you're on a 1341, it works great. Anyways, thank you guys. Can't wait to see next week's class that we will be starting for October 2023. We are doing the, what are we doing? We are doing the Yasmoda by Country Cow Designs for the Tuesday classes in October 2023. So thanks everybody, and I will catch you in the next class.